A man dies in a crowded theater. No weapon, no blood. No one saw anything. The only clue? A missing Roman hat. And every single person in that audience had a reason to lie. Let me tell you a story. Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be telling you a cozy, trimmed down retelling of a vintage mystery while I crochet this dinner set piece. The story is The Roman Hat Mystery, a classic detective novel written in 1929 by Ellery Queen. Ellery Queen is actually the pen name of two cousins who wrote old school puzzle style mysteries, and this was their very first novel. It's one of those stories with hidden clues, red herring, and a detective who expects you to try solving it along with him. And just a quick note, this book isn't in public domain, so it's completely okay for me to share a retold version of it here. While we listen to that, I will be working on this crochet pattern inspired by the creator Cooking GX9. The original tutorial is linked in the description box because this is not my pattern. I'm just following along and making my own version. This is meant to be a cozy, slow, sit with me kind of video. No rush, no loud music, just stitching, a little mystery and vibes. Go grab your yarn and hook or a drink, get comfortable, and let's start. The Roman theater was packed that night. Every seat was taken. People stood in the aisles, squeezed shoulder to shoulder, fanning themselves in the warm air. It was the final act of a popular show, and no one wanted to leave. Somewhere in the middle of the crowd sat a quiet man with a neatly trimmed grey beard. He wore a dark overcoat, and resting on his head a tall silk hat, the kind people used to call a Roman hat. No one paid him any special attention until he died. It happened without a sound. No gunshot, no scream, no struggle. One moment he was sitting there watching the stage, the next his head fell forward and he never moved again. The people beside him didn't notice right away. They were too focused on the play. It wasn't until the final applause began and everyone stood up that someone brushed against his shoulder and realized he wasn't responding. "Hey, are you all right?" Another nudge, harder this time. Still nothing. Someone screamed. Within seconds, a ripple of panic moved through the rows. Ushers pushed their ways in. The lights came up. People leaned over the seats, whispering, pointing. The man was dead. A doctor in the audience was called forward. He examined the body quickly, then shook his head. "He's been dead for several minutes," he said quietly. There was no visible wound, no blood, no sign of violence, just a dead man sitting upright in his seat. And something else. The Roman hat was gone. Police arrived fast. They cleared the aisle, questioned the people sitting nearby, and searched the area around the seat. Nothing. No weapon, no hat. A thin, sharp-eyed man in a dark suit took charge of the scene. His name was Inspector Richard Queen. He studied the dead man carefully. "Who found him?" he asked. A nervous usher raised his hand. "I did, sir. He was sitting here the whole time. Didn't move. Didn't make a sound." Inspector Queen turned to the people seated nearby. "Did anyone see him leave his seat?" "No." "Did anyone see anyone take his hat?" "No." The inspector frowned. "This man was murdered," he said. Someone laughed nervously. "Murdered? But there's no wound." Quinn looked at the man coldly. There are ways to kill without leaving marks. The body was searched. Inside the man's pocket, the police found a wallet, some loose change, a few keys, and a watch. No identification, no letters, nothing that said who he was. Queen's eyes narrowed. No name, no paper, no hat. He glanced around the crowded theater again. This man sat here for the entire performance. He was alive when he walked in. He was dead before the curtains fell. And someone in this room took his hat. A murmur ran through the audience. Queen raised his voice. No one leaves the theater until we find that hat. At that moment, a young man stepped forward. He was tall, calm, and observant, with a thoughtful expression. Father, he said quietly. Queen turned. Ellery? Ellery Queen looked at the empty seat where the dead man's hat should have been. A Roman hat isn't something you can just hide easily. It's tall, it's stiff, it would show. His father nodded. Which means whoever took it planned this carefully, or needed the hat badly enough to risk being caught. Queen studied his son. You think the hat matters more than the murder weapon? Ellery didn't answer right away. I think that whoever took the hat knows exactly who this man was. The crowd shifted uneasily. Some people looked down at their laps. Others avoided eye contact. Somewhere in that theater, a murderer was standing among them, and the only clue they had was a missing Roman hat. The crowd was finally allowed to leave. One by one, people filed out of the Roman theater, whispering to each other, glancing back at the empty seat where the dead man had been. Queen stayed behind. The body was carefully lifted and carried out on a stretcher. The seat beneath it was searched again. The floor, the aisle, still no hat. Still no clue who the man was. At the police station, the body was examined more closely. The doctor shook his head. No visible wounds, no bruises, no broken bones, no poison we can easily detect. Queen frowned. So what killed him? Heart failure, most likely. But that doesn't explain why he died exactly when he did. Queen's expression hardened. A man doesn't just drop dead in the middle of a crowded theater for no reason. The dead man's pockets were emptied again. Wallet, loose change, keys, watch. No name, no address, no letters, not even a scrap of paper. Ellery Queen studied the items carefully. Someone wanted him to stay anonymous. His father nodded, and someone wanted his hat. The theater manager was questioned next. He bought his tickets at the box office, paid cash, came alone, didn't speak to anyone. Did he seem sick? Queen asked. No, sir, perfectly normal. The usher added. He sat through the whole show, didn't move, didn't cough, didn't complain. Ellery looked thoughtful. Then whatever killed him happened inside the theater. Queen turned to his son. What do you make of it? Ellery said. Ellery hesitated. The hat bothers me more than the death. His father raised an eyebrow. The hat? Yes, a Roman hat isn't valuable. It's not rare. It's not something you'd steal for money. So why take it? Because it identified him. The inspector leaned back. Do you think someone recognized him and panicked? Or, Ellery said, someone came here knowing exactly who he was and exactly what they were going to do. The police put out a public notice. An unidentified man had died at the Roman theatre. Anyone who recognized the description was asked to come forward. Hours passed. No one came. Late that night, a nervous young man walked into the station. He kept glancing over his shoulder. I, I think I know who your dead man is. Inspector Quinn straightened. Who? A gambler named Montefield. Ellery stepped forward. Are you sure? The man swallowed. Yes, I've seen him before, and I saw him at the theatre tonight. Queen's eyes sharpened. You didn't come forward earlier. I was scared. He had enemies, a lot of them. Ellery exchanged a look with his father. And did Montefield wear a Roman hat? The man nodded. Yes, always. Inspector Queen leaned in. Tell us everything you know about him. The man hesitated. Montefield cheated people. Big people. Dangerous people. Ellery felt a chill. And someone followed him into that theatre. The first real name had finally surfaced. Montefield. A man with enemies. A man who walked into a crowded theatre alive and never walked out. The name Montefield changed everything. Inspector Queen wasted no time. He sent detectives out across the city to track down anyone who had ever dealt with Field. Gamblers, bookmakers, debt collectors, business partners, anyone who might have wanted him dead. At the station, Ellery questioned the nervous young man again. How did you recognize him? The man shifted in his chair. I used to play cards with him a few years ago. He cheated. Everyone knew it, but he was clever. Hard to prove. And you saw him at the theatre? Yes, sitting alone. Same hat, same coat, same beard. Did anyone sit next to him? I think a woman sat down beside him for a while, but she left before the end. Ellery and his father exchanged a glance. A woman? That's new, said Queen. The next lead came from a bookmaker. Montefield owed me money, the man said flatly. A lot of it. How much? Enough to make him disappear. Ellery leaned forward. Did you threaten him? Plenty of times, but I didn't kill him. Dead men don't pay debts. Another gambler told a different story. He ruined me, cheated me out of everything I had. Did you follow him to the theatre? Queen asked. The man's eyes flashed. I wanted to, but I didn't. Piece by piece, a pattern emerged. Montefield cheated people, stole from them, destroyed lives, and walked away smiling. Ellery said it quietly. This man didn't just have enemies. He collected them. Then the medical report came back. The doctor stood in Inspector Queen's office. We found traces of poison, a slow-acting one, tasteless, colorless. So he was poisoned before he came into the theatre, or during the performance. It would take time to kill. In other words, he could have been sitting there, dying for an hour. Queen leaned forward. Could someone have poisoned him without being noticed? The doctor nodded. In a drink, in candy, on a cigarette, any number of ways. Ellery thought about the woman, the one who sat beside him, and left early. The police tracked down the theater's concession workers. No one remembered serving Field anything unusual. No drinks, no snacks, nothing. Ellery frowned. Then he didn't buy poison inside the theater. Late that evening, a new witness appeared. An elderly man who had sat 2 rows behind Field. I saw someone lean over him, just for a second, like they were whispering. Who? I don't know. It was dark, but they were wearing gloves. Gloves. The pieces were coming together. A poisoned man, a missing hat, a woman who sat beside him, a gloved figure who leaned close, and a victim with more enemies than friends. Ellery spoke softly. This wasn't a sudden fight. This wasn't rage. His father nodded. It was planned. Somewhere in that city, the person who poisoned Monty Field was walking around free and wearing a Roman hat. The woman became their first real suspect. Inspector Queen and Ellery returned to the Roman theatre the next morning. They spoke to every usher again. One of them finally nodded. Yeah, there was a woman sitting next to him for part of the show. Can you describe her? Dark hair, well-dressed, calm, not noisy. She left before the final act. Did you see where she went? No, sir. She just stood up and walked out. The theatre managers checked ticket records. Only one seat next to Fields had been sold separately. Your name on the ticket? Miss Josephine Green. Ellery looked up. That's our woman. The address led them to a quiet boarding house. Miss Green answered the door herself. She was composed, polite, almost too calm. Yes, I was at the theatre. I sat next to a man in a Roman hat. Did you know him? Queen asked. No. Ellery studied her face. You left early. Yes, I wasn't enjoying the show. Queen's eye hardened. You didn't notice anything strange about him? No. Ellery asked softly. Did you speak to him? She hesitated. Only to ask if he could move his hat. It was blocking my view. And did he? Yes. Ellery felt a chill. That means he was alive when you sat down. Miss Green nodded. They searched her room. Nothing suspicious. Queen frowned. You're free to go. For now. Outside, Ellery spoke quietly. She's hiding something. You think she poisoned him? I think she was there for a reason, and she's lying about what she knows. That afternoon, a new lead arrived. A theatre employee came forward. I saw someone throw a hat into the trash outside the theatre, he said. Ellery's pulse jumped. When? Right after the show ended. Who? A man wearing gloves. Ellery closed his eyes for a moment. The gloved whisperer again. The trash bin had already been emptied. The hat was gone, so was the clue. Back at the station, Ellery paced. We have 3 pieces now. The woman, the gloves, the hat. And poison, said Queen. Ellery stopped. And motive. The police finally tracked down someone who had known Montefield personally, a woman named Mrs. Delaney. He ruined my life. He cheated my husband, drove him into death, into despair. Did you see him recently? Ellery asked. Yes, a week ago. He laughed when I begged him for mercy. Queen's jaw tightened. And did you follow him to the theatre? Miss Delaney looked him straight in the eyes. I wanted to kill him, but I didn't. Ellery spoke softly. So far, every enemy has motive, but no opportunity. Queen nodded. And our real killer had opportunity and something to hide. That night, Ellery stood by the window of his apartment. The missing hat haunted him. Not because it was rare, but because someone needed it gone. That hat wasn't stolen to hide the murder. It was stolen to hide who he was. Somewhere in the city, the murderer was watching the investigation unfold and waiting. The next morning, Ellery arrived at police headquarters with a folded newspaper in his coat pocket. Inspector Queen was already waiting. You didn't sleep, did you? Not well. He placed the paper on the desk. He placed the paper on the desk and smoothed it out. Tell me something. Why would a man go to the theatre in a Roman hat? For attention? Vanity, a joke? No, for disguise. They drove back to the Roman theatre. Ellery walked slowly through the empty rows, stopping at Montefield's seat. He sat here in plain view, doing something ridiculous. Queen crossed his arms. And you think he wanted to be noticed? No, I think he wanted to be misidentified. They questioned the head usher again. You ever seen that man before? Not that I recall. What about his face? Anything distinctive? Well, he had a small scar near his right eyebrow. Scar? No one mentioned a scar before. Didn't think it mattered. The hat drew your eyes more than his face. Back at headquarters, Ellery opened a newspaper. A missing persons notice stared up at him. Wanted. Information on the whereabouts of one George Durand, age 52. Last seen 3 days ago. Distinguishing feature, small scar over right eyebrow. Ellery tapped the notice. The man in the Roman hat wasn't Montefield. Queen stiffened. You're saying we misidentified the body? I'm saying someone wanted us to. Queen stood up sharply. You're talking about impersonation now. Ellery nodded. Someone else died in Montefield's place. They sent for the coroner. You can confirm this, Ellery said. Did the body have a scar over the eyebrow? Yes. Why? Queen swore under his breath. Inspector slammed his fist on the desk. So the dead man wasn't Montefield at all. Ellery's voice was steady. No. Montefiore is alive and hiding. The implications hit the room like a shock wave. Queen rubbed his forehead. Then why fake his death? Ellery paced. Because someone wanted him legally dead, or because he wanted to vanish. Queen stopped him. And the poison? Ellery met his gaze. To make it look like murder. To divert suspicion. To keep us chasing enemies instead of identities. A knock came at the door. A young officer stepped in. Sir, Miss Josephine Green is back. Miss Green stood stiffly in the doorway. You said I was free to go, she said coldly. Ellery stepped forward gently. We need the truth now. She hesitated. I recognized him, she said finally. Queen leaned in. Recognized who? The man in the Roman hat. From where? He used to come to my boarding house. Different name, different clothes, but the same scar. What name did he use? George Durand? Queen's breath left him slowly. So he was the missing man. Miss Green nodded. He paid me to sit beside him that night. Paid you? Yes, he said, if anyone asks, say you don't know me. Did he say why? No, but he looked terrified. So Durand died. Field vanishes, and someone stages poison to fake a murder. Or Durand was murdered for Field. Another knock. A clerk rushed in. Sir, we found the Roman hat. Where? In a second-hand shop across town, sold late last night by a man wearing gloves. The Whisperer again. They hurried to the shop. The owner shrugged. He said he found it in a trash bin, paid cash. Ellery examined the inside brand. Something was stitched into the lining, a name. G. Durand. Ellery closed his eyes. That settles it, Queen whispered. This was never Montefiore's hat. Ellery turned grim. Someone didn't just kill a man. They erased his identity and replaced it with someone else's. Queen stared at the hat. And whoever did this is still out there and still playing us. That night, Ellery wrote one line in his notebook. The victim was not the intended victim. He underlined it twice. The city was grey with late afternoon rain. Ellery and Inspector Queen returned to the Roman theatre. The empty seats gleamed wet from the drizzle outside. We're running out of time. The murderer knows we are closing in. Ellery studied the rows where Montefiore, no, George Durand had sat. The killer is bold. Or reckless. They left a hat in a second-hand shop, but they never knew we did find it. Miss Josephine Green had been called in again. She entered the station, her face pale, hands folded tightly. Queen started. Miss Green, you know more than you're telling. She raised her chin. I've told you everything I know. Ellery leaned forward. Did you see anyone approach Mr. Durand that night? She hesitated. There was a man. He whispered something. I couldn't hear it, but he wore gloves, black leather. Queen's hand clenched. The Whisperer. Ellery nodded. Yes, and he was watching carefully, waiting for someone to make a mistake. Suddenly, a young officer burst in. Sir, we traced the gloves. They were purchased yesterday at the same shop where the hat was sold. Queen slammed the desk. So our killer is not just bold, he's meticulous. Ellery's eyes narrowed. Every step was calculated. Poison first, a decoy identity, a witness planted to mislead us, the hat removed, sold, and traced back to a dead man's name. Someone orchestrated this like a game. You, you think I'm a part of this? Said Mrs. Green. Ellery shook his head. No, but you were a piece on this board, and they watched you as carefully as you watched Mr. Durrant. The coroner arrived with a new report. Ellery read it silently, then looked up sharply. The poison was not enough to kill immediately. He would have survived if left alone. Queen's brow furrowed. So the killer wanted him alive until the theatre scene to stage the perfect death. Precisely, and someone inside the theatre planted fear in him, someone he trusted. Mrs. Green gasped. Ah! Someone he knew? Yes, and that person is still among us. A sudden knock, the door creaked open. It was the bookmaker from earlier. His face pale, hands shaking. Inspector? They know I talked. Who knows? He swallowed. Montefield. No, George Durrant. He's not the only target. They want me too. Ellery's head tilted. Because you have motive, and you know too much. The bookmaker's voice broke. They said if I breathe a word, I'll be next. Ellery paced the room slowly. Let's summarize. Poison applied carefully, decoy identity planted, witnesses strategically placed, hat removed, gloved man observed, and now someone is issuing threats to anyone connected to him. Quinn whispered, You think our killer is watching this room too? Ellery's gaze hardened. Of course. That's why the killer left no loose threads. Every move calculated to make us follow clues instead of the truth. Miss Green's hand trembled as she spoke. And what truth is that? Ellery knelt slightly, voice low. The truth is, Montefield is alive. George Durrant is dead, and someone close to both is manipulating the rest of us like pawns. Then who? That is what we must discover, and if we hesitate, someone else dies tonight. Outside, rain pelted the windows. The clock ticked loudly. A shadow moved across the grass. Somewhere in the city's wet streets, the killer was planning the next move. And the game was far from over. The rain had stopped. The streets were slick, reflecting the street lamps with molten gold. Ellery and Inspector Queen returned to headquarters, their mind racing. Tonight, said Ellery, someone will make a mistake. Queen raised an eyebrow, and we will be ready. Miss Josephine Green was waiting. her face pale but resolute. I I think I know who the killer is. Ellery said, "Tell us everything." "It's Mrs. Delaney. She wanted Montefield gone." "Delaney? The woman from the gambling debts?" "Yes. He he ruined her family, but it's more than that. She wanted George Durand dead too. Both identities manipulated, the poison, the decoy, the hat. All of it. She planned it to cover her tracks and make everyone chase the wrong leads. We need to confront her. Carefully. She's dangerous." "Dangerous? She's murderous." They arrived at Mrs. Delaney's home. The door opened before they could knock. Delaney stood there, composed as ever. "Inspector Queen, to what do I owe this honor?" "Mrs. Delaney, we need to ask you a few questions." "And I suppose you have evidence?" "Yes, enough to make your story very interesting." Queen held up the Roman hat. Delaney's eyes widened, but her composure returned immediately. "That old thing? I found it discarded near the theatre, though thought I'd keep it. Looks better than the one I wore to the ball." Ellery's voice cut softly but sharply. "You're lying, and you know it. You planted the hat, sold it, watched us find it. Every step was staged." Delaney laughed, low and chilling. "Bravo, Mr. Queen! You have figured it out, but you will never have proof." "The proof is in your planning, your knowledge of Durand's habits, your attempts to manipulate Josephine Green, and your handwriting on the poisoned vial's note." You you had the notes?" "Yes. They were left in your ledger, disguised as receipts. You're under arrest for the murder of George Durand and the decoy victim." Dele- "You think y- y- you think you have won? But this was just a game, a perfect game." "Every game ends, and every player is eventually caught." Outside, the rain returned softly, drumming on the windows. Ellery looked at Queen. "The city is safe for now, but human greed, that's the real mystery." Queen shook his head. "And here I thought murder was complicated." "Murder is simple. People are complicated." Miss Green, standing quietly, looked relieved. You guys solved it." "Together, but the hat, it told the story all along." Queen glanced at the Roman hat. "It's more than just a hat now. It's the key." Ellery smiled faintly. "And the game is finally over." The station was quiet as the sun rose. The killer was behind bars. The victims remembered, and a Roman hat sat quietly on a desk. A reminder of the puzzle, the plan, and the truth. And that's the end of the Roman hat mystery. A tangled web of clues, disguises, and a single Roman hat that told the story all along. I hope you enjoyed following along as much as I enjoyed stitching this dinner set while we unraveled it together. A huge thank you to the original creator. The tutorial I followed is linked in the description box, along with all the yarn and hook info if you want to try it yourself. The yarn I used today is Crochet Now, 100% soft mercerized cotton in icing cream and golden yellow, and my hook size is 3.5 mm. And if you're curious, The book we read is written by Ellery Queen, a classic mystery author from the 1920s. This retelling is my cozy take on their public domain story. If you enjoyed this little crochet and mystery session, feel free to like, share, or subscribe. Maybe pick up a Roman hat for yourself. You never know what mysteries it might hide. Until next time, stay cozy, keep stitching, and keep reading. Bye for now.